All right, so yeah, that's it for me. So we'll move on to our final topic of the day. It's something we normally do at the very beginning, but we decided to kind of push it on, and we're going to talk about it last. um, kind
We
of.
didn't want to end on a bad note.
Yes, yes. This is perfect mouth rinse.
I like cleanser.
This is our Listerine for the night. Um, but essentially, yeah. Over the break, I streamed and played a new game, and I really enjoyed it. It's a game called Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. I know it's not a small title. A lot of people have heard about it, but it's a game I didn't necessarily get to play immediately, and I finally got to. Um, Once again, this game came out in 2021, and I know it came out to quite a bit of praise. Won some awards and was in the running for Game of the Year, I believe, from that year. But yeah. So let me switch over. We'll get some B-roll footage here going. But there wasn't a heck of a whole lot actually that I disliked walking away from this game with. Um, Man, it was like a pretty great experience through and through. I loved the story, loved a lot of aspects of the gameplay. We could deep a little more into that. I feel like the gameplay was, more specifically the combat, was maybe the low point, but even that necessarily wasn't that bad in my opinion. But yeah, just kind of the characters themselves, the world this game built, story, how everything really worked. I don't know, everything for me just kind of clicked for this game. How about you? I know you played it a long time ago.
Yeah, it's not as fresh from. I think I played it a month or so after it came out. It was over the last holiday. I enjoyed it. I think you are probably putting it higher on your list of favorite games more than I would. Only because I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this. There's a lot to love about this game. The writing is really good. Graphically, sometimes it's beautiful. I thought the gameplay itself was fine. It wasn't great. It had moments that I was kind of like, okay, whatever. With what they call them, where you called your team in to be like, hey everybody, this is what we have to do.
The huddle up, or whatever.
Yeah, those I got a little tired of. I kind of wish you could have played as the other Guardians. Nothing bad. The gameplay is perfectly fine.
Well, that's why I said the low point, if there was a low point for me in the game, was its combat. But it wasn't a deal breaker. It was even entertaining, but it was definitely the weakest aspect of the game, I thought. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean that's kind of where I'm at, and even exploring the world. You have things to collect, but after a while, it felt kind of, a little bit of a chore to walk out of your way to go get stuff you didn't really even need. I mean, unlocking costumes was fine, but the world, although it was beautiful to look at, it wasn't super fun to explore. This game was very much, it was about the story and just kind of walking through it. This honestly probably could have been a Telltale game or a walking simulator, and I probably would have been about as happy as I was playing through it.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm not trying to say the gameplay was terrible. That's not my point here, but that was not the highlight, and I probably could have, taken it or leaving it depending. I kind of feel like, granted for different reasons, but as for a similar feeling, this reminds you of something like The Last of Us. The gameplay in The Last of Us was never anything incredible, and the environments, although very pretty, exploring was, lacking.
I agree.
I thought. But the story is what it was all about, the characters.
The story and the characters is where the game is, really freaking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, though, and I think I remember because you said when you were playing through, I think I heard you in your wrap-up that this was a game you'd want to play, every year.
I mean, I was riding a high after just beating the game, but I definitely think maybe every year or bi-yearly, I do think this is something I would like to... This is something where, now all of a sudden, I'm going to want to play this maybe every year, who knows, but, I don't know, it's a game...
I don't think... Oh, go ahead. I shouldn't cut you
just
off.
with a couple other games like Hades, the Mass Effects, Bioshocks, stuff like that. It's definitely up there. It's not above any of those, but yeah, it's up there for me.
I don't think I would ever play this game again.
Really? I loved
here's
it.
why. Well, it's not that I didn't like it, but for a game like this, what drugged me through and why I always wanted to see was, okay, where is this story going to go? What's going to happen with the characters? I now know all of that. I've experienced this game and this story. I mean, it'd be like watching a movie again, which, I watch movies again, but this is a much longer take on that, right? A movie, I can sit down for an afternoon and revisit it. I don't know if I'm going to want to spend 20 hours revisiting a story that I already know necessarily. Like, even if I like the story, like I don't think I'm going to go back and play The Last of Us anytime soon, even though I think it's an amazing story, because the gameplay is not engaging enough. Like you mentioned something like Mass Effect. Okay, yes, I know the Mass Effect story, but that's not what Mass Effect is about. Like, I mean, yeah, kind of, but it's also about the decisions you make and the way you approach the gameplay and the RPG aspects of it. BioShock is very much a gameplay-heavy game as much as it is narrative. So the fact this is all narrative to me means I'll probably never play it again. Not that I don't like the game at all, the story wasn't worth it. I don't know. I just don't see me taking 20 hours to relive a story I already know all over again.
I think you're crazy.
I might be. You can say that. I don't know. For me to there are games that I like to replay every year as much as I possibly can, but there's got to be a gameplay component to it or a hook that brings me in. Like, I would probably get about the same enjoyment watching a YouTube recap of the story moments of this game as I would to trying to play it again, and I'd be able to do that a lot quicker on YouTube. So
I will say you're kind of right. I mean, I can.
I'm glad I played it through the first time, though. I will say that I am glad I played it through the first time, because that experience was a lot of fun. On a repeat, though,
I'll say I can kind of see, because I feel like my favorite aspect of this game, other than the characters themselves, was a lot of aspects that are much better and more developed in the Mass Effect game. So, I mean, maybe I could make the argument to myself that, like, why not just go play a Mass Effect game if that's what I'm looking. You know what I mean? Like the dialogue options, the making decisions, having, decisions you're making having ramifications. Like all that kind of stuff that I liked from this game. It's way better utilized and better in Mass Effect.
The decision-making aspect in this game was pretty light. Like, you could change some dialogue stuff.
But I didn't know it was in there at all when I first started playing. That's why I was like, oh, man, this is cool.
Yeah, but, like, it doesn't change the overall experience. Like, you made decisions in Mass Effect, at least, before 3.
I didn't pay my fine. That affected my scene at the end.
It did, but that's one scene. It didn't affect you much. But you get what I'm saying. Yeah, so I'm not trying to I think they did a fantastic job with this game. I'm glad this game exists. I'm very much glad I played it.
My favorite part right here.
Yeah. And maybe I will go back and play it one day, like 10 years from now, when I just really can't remember anything about it. But, like, this game also has a lot of padding. Granted, a lot of the padding worked because, you're hearing the banter between your crew, like, kind of going back and forth, and that was fun. But I think you even said this, I think it was early on in your game, like, the banter is a little glitchy. Like, they'll be starting talking conversation.
Very glitchy, yeah.
Yeah, then you'll move into a story area, and that conversation is cut short. So the part that makes that traversal worth it is kind of iffy sometimes. But there's good stuff in this game. I kind of wish it was more of a Mass Effect-y experience almost, because, like, there would have been more meat to it, right? What if you could have just, like, picked anywhere in the galaxy to go and, like, run off on little, like, smuggling runs or little jobs with the team. Like, that could have been neat, and maybe that would be the evolution of this game.
Maybe like a wider, expanded. What is her name? Lady Hellbender? Was her name Hellbender?
Yeah, maybe. Like stuff where you get, like, more side missions to do. Maybe that would bloat this up too much. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong direction, because I think what made this game work too was how tight the narrative was. But I said that would be something that would bring me back one day if it had just more to do beyond the narratives. I don't know. I'm kind of stuck in between this a little bit. Like, on one end, I'm glad it was this very focused experience. But at the same time, I just don't know if it's an experience that I'm going to come through again. That's maybe just me personally. Some people probably love everything about this and want to relive it every year.
So is it is it less replayable than, I haven't played the new ones, but the new Spider-Man game?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here's the thing, like, the new Spider-Man game, okay, yeah, the story is, good enough. It's the gameplay, like, swinging around, doing those activities. There's also, more side missions, granted some of it's busy work, but the gameplay, I just play that game just to swing around New York City. Like, there could be no story, and I would have played that game. So they're very different, focuses, and there, is definitely room in the market for it. But I think that also makes a game like this really difficult to produce in a market like this, because it's really risky, especially in the era of Let's Plays. Because, as I just said, I would have been happy probably just watching this game almost. And if I had watched you play this whole game through before I ever played it, I don't know if I would ever play it after that.
That's fair enough.
So, and that's the whole argument. But
It's definitely not my favorite superhero game, I would say. I'm still a big Arkham guy. Like
oh yeah,
I would
think
still
Arkham's
much
another
rather
one.
play any of the Arkham games. Well, maybe I like this one more than 3, but maybe they're on par. I don't know. These are the
There's
Marvel
just more to
games.
do in those games. Like the stories are good, but granted those aren't all narrative, but they have better gameplay. Like the combat in those games, especially at the time, was a huge amount of fun and fairly revolutionary. And you have all the challenges and riddle stuff and things to collect. Like it was a bigger game.
I will say
Not
maybe.
been,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Cutting you
no,
off.
no, go ahead.
I
I was
just
cutting you.
like one thought I thought is I did think the game kind of ran a little long.
It's hard to drag.
In certain parts, there's certain parts on some of the planets that like, just I feel like the whole part where you were going down into like this cave system and going through like this mysticism thing. I felt like that went on pretty long. That was like the whole part where you were trying to save Drax from his.
Yeah, that went long.
Yeah.
I felt like the trek to Fing Fang Foom went a little long. Like I really liked the Fing Fang Foom fight and kind of the premise of it, but I felt like that time it took to you to
The
get
fight
to
with
them,
with the weird monkey
Wendigos.
Wendigo. Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I feel like that started to lull in the middle. I felt like they were just kind of padding it out at that point.
If it would have
So,
shaved off maybe like 5 to 10, I feel like it would have been a much better experience.
and that may have if it was a little shorter, my opinion might change it if I'd replay it too. Like if the game was 10 hours long, you know
10 to
what?
15, yeah.
Yeah, I might run through it again. I wouldn't, spend a lot of time doing a lot of collectibles
But
or
20 to
anything,
25, yeah.
yeah, that extra 10 hours is enough to be like, I could play a different game. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I liked the game, as I'm glad it exists. I don't know. I don't want to come across negative about the game because I really did enjoy it. I know you did too. So I'm just gonna say
I really enjoyed it,
I
yeah.
enjoyed it.
There's so many cool things. Like I said, the whole scene with Lipless is like something
Mhm.
I'll always remember. The battle with Fing Fang Foom was really cool. I loved freaking Cosmo. He's such a good boy.
And it was emotional towards the end too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the whole "not your daughter is your daughter" kind of thing. Like,
Mhm.
and that hit me because I got a kid, I got a daughter. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So, it definitely I think was written well, and the characters were done really well. So.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of cool little Easter eggs too. If you really dig into it, like the amount of time they spent on the environments and like on nowhere and all the little stuff they hid in there.
Oh, the whole
It didn't.
the collectors thing. I don't know if you saw my stream, but like,
Oh yeah.
did you see my stream when I was at the collector part?
I was part of that.
I literally sat through and read every collector's item
Mhm.
that was there.
Yeah, they put way too much effort in that than was required, and I think it was awesome that they
Yeah.
did all those little details. Honestly, the nowhere part was probably one of my favorite parts because it was finally a part
I
where
agree.
you could take
I agree with
time
that.
and explore. That's kind of why I wish this was a bigger game to a certain extent, where there were areas like that I could just, not on a time schedule, not trying to push the narrative. I can just explore, maybe find some little side
Which
missions.
Mass Effects were
and-
always heavy on that. He drops you into a new place like on Omega, and you just
Mhm.
walk around and see the people dancing and go up and get a drink, get wasted.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe there's a world where like this merged with a Mass Effect in some way could have been really cool. I said maybe that would have made it too bloated.
You're
So, I
right
mean,
though. The nowheres. I was just thinking about the part where you go up and you order the food at the thing. I was sitting there eating each item. I was paying for each item to eat.
Yeah. And as I said, that's I think a spot too where there actually were a lot of decisions you could kind of make that had impact. That's where you could pay your fine, or there was something else you could do. There was a lotto system you could do that I think had some impact. Like there was some neat stuff there that I kind of wish they would have fleshed out in other areas, but I don't know. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here because I think there's a world too where if they would have done that, I'd be like, man, I wish this game was a lot shorter, just focused on the story. I don't know.
I will.
Because here's the thing too: if the gameplay wasn't better and they tried
Mm-hmm.
to stretch it out, I think I would have been more disappointed. So I think they also would have needed to revamp the actual moment-to-moment gameplay to make something like that worth it.
Yeah. I will say one thing that was kind of a disappointment is there wasn't a lot of like recognizable like other Marvel characters involved. Like I mean I'm not big on like a lot of the deep lore, so like this is the first time I was learning what like the Nova Corps was.
Mhm.
I don't know if Lady Hellbender or whatever her name was an actual character from the comics.
I'm sure she was. I don't know a lot about it.
I
I
don't
was
know.
kind of glad though there wasn't a lot of crossover. Like,
Maybe
I
okay.
think probably like many people are getting, Marvel
Cosmo was one of the
15.
few I was like, okay, I've heard of him somewhere.
Yeah. It seems like most of everything in this stayed within the canon of just the Guardians, which I was fine with. I mean, the first Guardians movie pretty much did the same thing too. It didn't
Fair
have a whole lot
enough.
of overlap. Not saying cameos aren't fun, but I don't think this needed that. I mean, I am glad they stayed really focused because at the same time, I was talking like, oh, it'd be nice if this game was bigger. We saw what they tried to do with a bigger like live service game kind of thing with Avengers, and
Oh
that
yeah.
was a crap show. So I think this was a nice palate cleanser as an opposition of that. Just very focused. It did
Mm-hmm.
what it wanted to do. So I don't want to come across like, this game should have been something completely different. I am glad this game is what it is, and I hope it gets a sequel. I think now that it's on Game Pass, that opens the door to it a little bit.
But no, didn't
Um,
they say because Square Enix got bought out? I thought they said that means. Well, I guess there's no definitive answer, but they said it's less likely now that they got bought out by Embracer Group.
Not necessarily. Here's the thing: Square would not have made a sequel to this. Period. I don't think they had a lot of confidence in it. It didn't do well for them
Well,
initially. Their
yeah, we
Game
talked
Pass
about it.
deal,
Didn't sell
yeah,
well.
that was I think just a way for them to recoup something. Embracer Group doesn't have that same loss or investment. They now have this game and they have a studio, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which studio actually made it?
I'm
Was
pretty sure they
it
do.
Either way, so they have the resource, they have the engine sitting here. So honestly, it's less of an investment to a certain extent for them to make a sequel, because some of the tech's already there. Maybe there's already a story already kind of working around in the development team, and it seems like Embracer Group might be a little riskier with this kind of thing. So I don't know. I think it actually opens the door to see something like this happen again. I would hope so because this was a good game. I think because they don't have the negative kind of hit that Square Enix took, it seems like a favorable thing for them to do, especially with all the good praise that it got critically.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that on Game Pass now is getting more attention. Why wouldn't they want to tap into that again? So I don't know.
What
And they
did
got Guardians 3 coming out before too long, so why not try to capitalize on
yeah.
that?
What did you think about some of the liberties it took with some of the story, or at least what to me is liberties? Because I kind of gauged everything off of the movies. Maybe
I'm fine
maybe
with
some of
that.
the things that happened in it were more closely to the book comics, for all I know.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thing. Like, I'm not real lore specific on Guardians or really a lot of comics. I know passing
Like
details
there
about
was
certain
no
characters,
romantic thing with Gamora, and the way everything that happened with the mom seemed.
but I'm not even sure if that's always the case in the comics either. Like, here's what I've probably mentioned this on a prior podcast. My big thing whenever I see an adaptation on anything is that the characters stayed true to who they are. Every one of these characters in this game
Stay
feel
true.
right.
Yeah.
Peter Quill is right. Rocket's good. Gamora, Drax, Groot. Everybody feels right. The specifics on like how they came to be, what they do, that can change. And here, I would have felt the same way about the Halo show. If the characters would have been right and they changed things about the circumstances, I probably would have been more forgiving if Chief felt like Chief. If Halsey, interacted like I expected Halsey to interact. Like this works for me with the way they did Guardians. Maybe it's not lore accurate to the comics. Maybe it is. It doesn't matter because I could foresee all these characters doing these exact things in this situation because those characters are accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my stance.
No, I agree. Um, Let me look at my notes. I don't think there's really anything else.
How do you feel about having to re-upload like every Let's Play you did?
I didn't have
Well,
to. I only had to do.
right.
I only had to do 2 episodes because they were
Oh, okay.
They were different copyright claims. Basically, every video I had copyright claims on it,
Mhm.
but the only ones that were copyright taken down were ones that had the "Call Me" by Blondie on it. So
That's interesting.
literally any video I had that Blondie played in the background, that got taken down.
Mm.
So whoever owns the rights to Blondie, man, I don't know. They don't like their stuff being used. But
Yeah.
every other music maker just put a copyright claim and was like, whatever.
So, a question for you then. This is kind of getting off Guardian specific, more of a YouTube creator question, and
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you want to go into this, but so I know you're not looking to like, monetize this particular video or anything. But how would say you were some big time YouTuber, 5 years from now, and you were going to stream this game and knew that if you streamed it as is, you couldn't make a dime off it. Would you still stream it as is so that the people viewing would actually get to have the full experience, or would you try to like block out copyrighted music and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know. It's so situational. Like I feel like for the most part, I would still stream. Like I still want
So unedited, you'd stream it just like this,
unedited
all the copyrighted
and
stuff.
I would just keep doing what I'm doing. I would re-upload. You know,
What if you're losing out on $100,000, Chaz? What are you gonna do?
I
Checking your morals.
again, I went in. I started this channel with no expectations, so like, yeah. If there's a point, I kind of just like everything I kind of treat as though like though I'll wait until I cross that bridge till I get there. You know, for
Okay.
now,
So
we're good.
I'm sorry. So kind of building on that. So if you did decide to pull the music from this game, do you think it would affect the experience? If this game did not have that copyrighted music, would it still be the same game, or would
No,
you feel
no,
worse?
I would feel worse because because the music is a big aspect of the movies and the comics. I'm sure. So I feel like to have the ultimate Guardians experience, you needed the 80s music. You needed Star Lord's interaction with his cassette. You needed you needed that. I feel like it was necessary. So again, I don't have any like gripes with how any of that was implemented with with the game. I guess I it's more annoying to me like just just the idea that they're there. Like it's like I still am never like I don't know. I'm arguing in my head the idea, but I guess I understand it. How like yeah, the music companies may have struck a deal with the game that like the music can be used there, but technically they never struck a deal with it being streamed out. So I guess I kind of understand that, but I don't know.
Yeah, and those are all fair. And so I'm not trying to put you in the spot, but I don't know. I think we've had conversations about this with like YouTubers, basically doing what YouTubers do as far as Let's Players. I mean, there's a rabid community that would argue against this, but I mean, you gotta think you don't own this
Oh no, I
content.
agree. I'm as a content creator and as someone who is streaming this, I was totally at the behest of whatever the copyright system was. Like I was willing to I wasn't I'm not I was willing to put in the time to go and re-edit, and I got those videos still put up. I don't know if you gotten to listen to some of my edits.
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah, I like my tone down is way down, and I put like a wobbly.
Hmm.
It's so funny, but yeah, like if you do what you got to do, I mean, I don't.
I'm gonna ask a different question. I know I'm getting way off topic, but I don't know. I'm in a mood. So I kind of alluded to this earlier. Like, so if I had watched you play this game before I ever played it,
Mhm.
I probably wouldn't. How do you feel about that? Especially with games like this that are so like they're not gameplay focused. They are very narrative, and in a way, because someone's watching you play this game, the developer, especially in a situation like this where Square Enix would have very much liked to see the revenue from this game come in, you might have cost them a sale. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like there's like a weird obligation as a Let's Player to safeguard that potential sale for the person's game that you're playing?
Um, Not really. I mean,
So what if 100,000 people watched you play this game, and maybe half of them were considering buying the game beforehand, but after watching you, now only a tenth of them is going to go get it. So may have actively, and I don't know, I'm being theoretical here, but you actively cost Square Enix, 40,000 sales.
I I don't know though. I mean, isn't streaming so ubiquitous at this point though that like shouldn't the
Is that okay?
shouldn't the industry at some point figure out how to work with that kind of stuff? You know?
You know how they're going to do it. They're going to start giving you, you're not going to be able to monetize videos. They're going to have you have to actually take a cut of whatever you make. Like, that's the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they
Mm,
get a piece of your pie. But here's the thing: you're taking a piece of their pie. So I know I am playing devil's advocate here. I'm sure there's somebody in the comments
I
be like,
like
"No,
your I like your argument. I'm just saying I don't particularly feel bad. No, I mean it's again.
well,
I'm
right now too. You know, you're not doing that because I mean it's all kind of small scale. But I don't know. These are the kind of moral conundrums I think about. It's always kind of rubbed me in a weird way.
yeah no no. I agree with that. I mean, again though, it's weird. Everyone in my chat that was watching my streams had already played this game. Like literally, there was I don't know, just a few examples. There was a girl who was talking in the chat about how she said she had already played the game, but she's like,
Mm.
she said she was just wanting to watch someone else play it. She said it was just like a movie to her, and I thought that was interesting. I was like
Hmm.
talking to her in chat saying like, that's interesting. You viewing this as a movie, and then there's another person in chat who was just I guess was just watching to see how I beat some levels because he was having trouble on a harder difficulty. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of ways to take this. I said I'm giving you some really theoretical things that
Mm-hmm.
may or may not directly play out, but you got to think. I mean, there are some sales that in some way, shape, or form probably lost because someone who might have been interested in this game might have went and bought it, has now seen the game played out. Maybe you can say, okay, that's on them. They shouldn't have watched it if they wanted to buy it, but I don't know, especially for these narrative games. I've seen a lot of YouTubers, not necessarily Let's Players specifically, but like if they're coming across a game like this, they will only stream or put videos out for like the first third of a game
Yeah.
or however much, and then they say, okay, the rest of it, I don't want to spoil. You go do whatever. And
I mean,
I,
maybe at some point it might be a good idea for these companies to like, I don't know, reach out and work with the big streamers. Like you can have like advertising. I mean, like the big streamers have sponsors. Like try and get them to if I don't know. You know what I mean? Like tell them. Well, I guess no. That would be up to the music company, not up to them. I was gonna say they would waive copyright if you're, but that's the music company. That's not the game company.
I think it very much depends on the game too. Like some games you can market like that. Like I remember one of the big deals about potentially like Stadia when Stadia was still something that was a thing was because it was cloud based. You could be watching a streamer playing your game, and then they could click on a link in your game and join you. And like that's a benefit to the developer because it actually encourages engagement. But that's also a multiplayer game or maybe a game set up a little differently. Like I'm curious about just specifically these type of heavily narrated games, or even more so ones that don't have almost any gameplay. Like the one that always comes to mind, this kind of spurred this whole thought experiment, was many years ago. You remember the game Firewatch?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was like a walking
There,
simulator.
yeah, this was the first time I had kind of read an issue or about a developer taking, issue about this pretty much. They said, I could be very misquoted because it was many, many years ago, but basically, so many Let's players streamed their game from beginning to end, and because it's a completely narrative, non-gameplay focused walking simulator like game, no one, not no one, but a much smaller percentage bought their games. I know that's a hard thing to prove or verify because who can say who would have bought what, but you gotta argue that there's some truth to that.
Well, Square Enix is owned by a much larger company now, so now they can afford it. They can afford to take that loss. I don't know. I'm being
Wait, hold
a
on.
jerk.
Square Enix, okay, you need to. Square Enix did not sell themselves to Embracer. They sold many of their IP.
Oh,
You know,
that's right. Oh, I.
yeah, Square Enix is still Square Enix, to my knowledge, unless I really, really missed out on
Hmm.
something. They sold most of their Western division, but held on to a few things like Life is
I know
Strange
that. I don't know.
and something
I
else.
just zoned out. I actually zoned out watching my own gameplay.
I
Um,
guess
no,
I'm asking all the hard probing
no,
questions.
I get what you're saying. I don't know. It's so tough to like.
I'm not trying to make you feel bad about streaming the game. That's not my point here. It's just,
Mm,
it's one of those things I think about every once in a while when I'm watching Let's Players run through. Because I tell you, there have been games that I have thought about picking up, and then I watch them play it. It's not just like as a demo thing or that the game was bad. I'm like, oh, well, that was that game. I don't need to play it now. They definitely lost a sale from me. I'll tell you, for certain games.
well, that's
Uh,
probably a big reason why a lot of these companies are so adamant about selling off or merging. They're not wanting to take, like you said, take that risk of people streaming or them losing sales and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know.
And that's why they're afraid to make games like Guardians of the Galaxy or
Yeah.
things like that, because it's hard to guarantee, I think, a good monetization track out of this. Like, the only way they make money off this is if people go out and buy this game. There's not recurring like microtransactions, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they should have put that in. I'm very, very thankful they didn't, but
Careful.
because there isn't, and there's not a lot of ads, and it's not, a live multiplayer component.
Mm-hmm.
Their money comes from the sales, or I guess, like Game Pass deals in this case, but it's just a tricky thing. I think that's why you don't see a lot of games like this from these bigger developers. Smaller developers, because it hurts them too. I mean, that's the whole issue with the Firewatch thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's getting late. I won't probe your brain.
No, you're fine. Yeah, it is getting late, but I don't know. Just again, overall thoughts. Really enjoyed Guardians. I agree with you. I would love to see a sequel. It's definitely a title I think is worthy, and I would love it. I would actually recommend. You know what? I recommend everyone going out and playing the game themselves. Don't just watch me play. Go out and support us, good old Square or whoever.
That's a good ChazmaN.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything else about Guardians? I mean, that's basically everything. Everything for me all wrapped up.
Well, let me ask: if they do make a sequel, do you want them to pretty much do this game again with just a new story, but like really similar flow and feel, or do you want them to expand to, like we were talking about, a Guardians of the Mass Effect or
Mass Effect? I would expand by far. Like I wouldn't be disappointed if they backed away from combat. Not completely, but tone it down. Like combat was fine in this game, but it by no means was like, I don't know, I felt like I was just doing the combat sections, just waiting to get to another dialogue or just to see what the next, cutscene was. I mean, it very much felt like a movie. It felt, I feel like that's part of the, the whole reason people like the Telltale stuff is because it feels more movie. That's why a lot of those IPs they had were movie oriented, or TV show. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what always helped the Telltale ones from, I think, fall into that same trap we were talking about from like the walking simulator stuff, is because most of them had a lot of like impactful decision making. So like, it opened itself up for replayability and whatnot. But a game like this, they didn't really dig into it. So maybe if they did that with this game, more decisions, more branching combat, that would probably incentivize people to play it more than just watch it.